This is Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God, because God is speaking to you and to me and to the church and to the world. And here we get to listen in on the conversations, these incredible encounter stories with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences. Welcome. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Question: what happens when an irresistible force meets an immovable object? Answer: the only thing that can happen, they pass through each other. The irresistible force can't be stopped, the immovable object cannot be moved, and that is exactly what happens in this episode today. I have the irresistible force, which for me in this podcast has always been the music that bubbles up in my head, leading me to certain topics or whatever. And that music this week is the wedding song. Again, from last week when Carolyn, my daughter, and Daniel got married and all that, it played a role in all that, the wedding song. And it's steeped in biblical verses, in particular Genesis. What's the immovable object? I can't ignore those crazy things I said 62 episodes ago in episode 280 about Donald Trump. The music that played in my head was in part from the movie Heaven Can Wait, about a billionaire being assassinated, but he still goes on to win. And it's like we said stuff, and it's like I can't ignore that. In fact, a few nights back, Beth and I were sitting down to watch a movie. The wedding was all done, and it was like, let's just chill, right? Let's pick a movie. Let's watch Father of the Bride. So we did. Right? And then, hey, it's still early. Let's watch another movie. How about, what's this one? Sounds familiar. 2 Weeks Notice. Hugh Grant and Sandra Bullock. Okay, so we're watching the movie. Halfway through it, they mention Donald Trump. What? Can't get away from the immovable object. And then later in the movie, he's in it. He shows up for like 30 seconds of screen time and dialogue. It's like, okay. So again, we have these two subjects, if you will, and I don't know how to combine them. It's like they're two different shows, aren't they? No, they pass through each other in this episode. And what led me to that was another song. It's a Frank Sinatra song, and it's something, if I can remember the lyrics. It's when an irresistible force such as you meets an old immovable object like me. Something's got to give, something's got to give, something's got to give. Okay, I didn't even look up the lyrics. I just knew that much of it. I didn't hear the lyrics until literally a few minutes ago. You want to know what else it says in this song? Listen to this.
Fight.
Fight. He just quoted Trump from the day he was shot when he got up, fist in the air. It's like, okay, these two stories go through each other. The wedding song and the prophetic that happened 62 weeks ago. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to that episode 280. I'm going to play a little bit. I had my friend and journalist Ed Esposito on with me to kind of discern what the different music that was playing in my head. I'm not going to play all of it, just kind of the highlights, what we need to know here. But I'm going to have a link in the show notes if you want to hear the whole episode and how we kind of go back and forth over this might mean that or that might mean this. Now we know what some of these things mean, and we can go back to it. All right? All right. Now to do this, I've got to put on the referee shirt, because right about that same time I was talking about this Trump stuff, I also had this kind of, I don't know what it was, dream vision-y thing where I'm at a football game and I'm watching a referee run for a touchdown. I mean, it's like, what? He was the only one on the field and he's running for a touchdown. And then when he scores, then he turns around, he's flipping the ball around, and then I hear the word impartial. Impartial. A good referee is impartial. He's not rooting, he's just calling the game. Message to Trapper. Be impartial. Be a referee. When you get these musical pieces or phrases, whatever, be the referee. Don't root. The worst thing I can do is root. So when we look at this Trump story, which, he is a rather controversial figure, and you get this hot, cold, and on all this, and the fire that comes out around from both sides on the issue of Trump, don't be a part of that. Is the message to me. It's not good guy Trump, bad guy Trump. It's just show the puzzle pieces. What I get are puzzle pieces. Play the referee. Okay, so that's what we're going to do in this episode. So let's travel back to episode 280. Well, that didn't take long. Here we are. And I got my buddy Ed with me. I'll play this. We'll play a little stop-start here so you understand. And like I say, want to hear the whole thing? I have a link to 280. Otherwise, let's just hit the high points and then how this intersects, how this irresistible force moves through the immovable object. So here now is my buddy, longtime friend, journalist, Ed Esposito. And hi and welcome, by the way.
Oh, hi and welcome back.
Well, thank you so much. And we worked together a bunch of years, and I was your best man, which you'll always regret. And let's see what else. And
best wedding speech ever.
Best. It always goes back to a wedding. Somewhere there's always a wedding in these things, right? In terms of the music that bubbled up one day, I mentioned to him that I wasn't feeling very well this particular day, and I was downstairs sitting on the couch and just kind of kept drifting off, then waking up, drifting off, waking up. But every time I woke up, there was like this new piece of the puzzle that was being presented, different songs, different phrases. Okay?
Okay.
Next, you're old enough to remember the song too, Jay and the Americans, This Magic Moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Jay and the Americans. Okay, you got a political thing, Jay and the Americans, Donald J. Trump. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what Jay and this magic moment. What is the magic moment? Well, maybe that connects to the thing I jumped over. All right, so now coming back to the present, now we know what that magic moment was. That has to be Butler County. That has to be July 13th, 2023. That has to be that moment, those shots. That has to be, and he turns his head enough that the bullet nicks him in the ear and doesn't go through his brain. That is the magic moment, is it not? That's the fight moment, if you will, where it's just, if he doesn't turn his head, he is dead. The election is different. We're following a different path. It's just, I mean, that is the magic moment, is it not? I remember that day, that evening, we were at some friend's house. We're having dinner. There's actually 4 couples. So there's 8 people outside, a beautiful July evening. We're having dinner. Somebody checks their phone and goes, oh my gosh, Trump's been shot. And he starts reading the account of what was known at that time. It was still kind of early on, but they got the ear part and all that. But what I remember is the sensitivity of everybody towards everybody else because you had different political views at that dinner. And so he read the story. And then there was silence. And I think the next thing I heard was, nice salad. You saw the movie Heaven Can Wait, Warren Beatty.
Absolutely.
Love that movie. It's one of those movies for me I can't not watch. I have to watch that movie. I just love that movie. Warren Beatty plays a L.A. Ram quarterback. He's going to go to the Super Bowl and all that. An angel makes a mistake and he dies when he's not supposed to. He wasn't supposed to die yet, and he dies, and now they've got to put him back in another body because he still wants to be the quarterback for the Rams and take him to the Super Bowl. And whose body do they put him in? A billionaire. They put him in a billionaire's body, okay, and then he buys the Rams to be the quarterback for the team, but before they get to the Super Bowl, somebody shoots him with a rifle, shoots and kills him.
Yeah.
Okay, then here's the part that this is the part I got in my little La La Land moment as I'm coming to. What I heard was, all right, I go in to talk about, I'm back to now. Okay, I know this movie so well, watched it so often, and probably because I'm blind and I listen to movies rather than watch them, that I can hear particular pieces of music and know what scene it is. Does that make sense? Okay, so as I'm waking up in La La Land in this on the couch moment, and I'm hearing this particular tune that plays at the Super Bowl. A band is playing at the Super Bowl during this moment where the quarterback for the LA Rams has been hit so hard he's down. What everybody doesn't know yet is that he's dead. He's dead, but nobody knows that yet. So they're about to put Warren Beatty into that body. And he's actually going to be, it's coming to that fulfillment of what he's always wanted, to quarterback the Rams in the Super Bowl game to the Super Bowl victory. He's actually getting what he wants here. So I'm hearing the music play, and this then plays out where indeed Warren Beatty, Joe Pendleton, now in the quarterback body, he's taken over that and quarterbacks his team, runs the next play for the touchdown. They win the Super Bowl game. He has his victory. Okay?
Wow. Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so you have all kinds of scenarios
possible with this?
So we go into this discussion here, as I come back to now, I'm now back to now, about, okay, is this an actual physical assassination, the billionaire being shot and killed? Is this political assassination? Because we're looking at symbolism. The movie itself is symbolic, right? A billionaire being shot, but still going on to victory and all that. It's all symbolism is what we're looking at here in this moment. And so we kind of danced around what all of this could be. How is it, because he was, at the time, there were indictments coming and all kinds of things were coming. And but the message was, regardless of what all of this is, whether it's real assassination, political assassination, whatever, somehow he comes through it and wins. And so I have, since this moment, since that time of getting all of this, as the referee collecting the puzzle pieces, I just waited. It's like, I believe this is going to happen somehow. I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't know in what form it's going to take, but somehow this movie, this music is going to come to fruition. So over the last 62 weeks here, I've just been watching this and assuming at some point we would have this discussion, right? So that brings us to now.
And he is just dead 10 times over in that regard. There is no possible life for this guy. But by an act of God, because that's what the movie says, by an act of God, he comes back to life and wins against all possible odds.
And now, back to now. And again, as the referee, not my opinion. I could care less about my opinion. I do care about his opinion, and this is what he gave me 62 weeks ago. What's going to happen is, this billionaire, he's picked the movie. He's picked the movie, and he's taken us through the scenario, assassination, and now we watch it all kind of happen. And I'm sitting here like you going, okay, is there any other referee calling the play? This is the referee calling the play of, he did that. He made that happen. He allowed certain things. He wouldn't allow other things. He created this for his purposes. Can you see any other way? I'm saying this as the referee. I'm just saying, calling the game here, there was divine intervention because this is the path he wanted versus the other path of whoever would be elected president just now. Whatever that was all going to be, he said, I'm going to choose this path. Would we agree on that? Based on what I heard 62 weeks ago, not knowing how it was going to play out. Because the next question then is why? I think it's, I don't want to have a Job moment here of why? Why'd you do that? I don't want to have that. I just want, the natural question is why? And he answers that. He actually answers that. That's why this irresistible force, immovable object, passing through each other requires the music of the wedding song.
Will a man shall leave his mother?
All right, that's the wedding song, Paul Stuckey. And I always have to be careful about playing music. It's copyrighted and all this kind of stuff. And even though I'm not trying to monetize it or anything, they red flag us, or yellow flag us rather, on YouTube sometimes. So I have to be careful how much I play. But bottom line is, it goes to the wedding song. And I mentioned last week, the weekend, our daughter, Carolyn, married Daniel, how 5 years ago, we were leaving church Sunday morning, and I heard that song in my head. That's what bubbled up 5 years ago. And I'm going, why am I getting this? The wedding song, and a man shall leave. It's steeped in Bible verses, and they will become as one, and all these things. And I go, what is all this? And then we got home, and Carolyn was there waiting for us to let us know that things were getting serious with a guy named Daniel we had not yet been introduced to. She always said, I'm not going to bring anybody up until things start getting serious. Well, they were. And so she told us that there was this guy. And when she left that morning, it was really kind of funny because Beth and I told her what happened with the music. And I'm going, I think this is the guy, right? 5 years ago. Okay, she just got married last weekend, okay? 5 years ago, the music bubbled up, and there it is. And how interesting it is, it's steeped in Genesis. And in fact, at her wedding, the very first reading was from Genesis. That they chose this reading, this part where it's mentioned that, and God made them male and female, right? And, once upon a time, that was not a controversial statement, right? Now it is, right? Just that alone from Genesis 1 is now controversial. And in fact, I'll tell you that I've debated whether or not to tell you this, but it's kind of funny, sad. It's like, it's crazy time.
But a couple of years back when Elizabeth and I were going to Medjugorje, we stopped in Rome. We were at the airport. We're talking to a woman. I don't know how this came up other than this woman was telling us about her friend who had just had a baby and that she had congratulated her friend on her new baby boy and all that. And her friend was indignant, was insulted, and was saying, I did not have a baby boy. I had a baby with a penis, and it will decide later on what it is. And it's like you hear, whew, it's like, okay. So it's not so simple anymore, right? But there's Genesis. He made them male and female. And a couple of weeks back, I was listening to Bishop Robert Barron on this topic. He was going into those Sunday readings. And it was right around the time that I was reading about how Mary, our Blessed Mother Mary, had said in an apparition to Lucia, who's the oldest of the Fatima children, along the way she had said to her that the very last battle before this age comes to an end, will be over marriage and family. And we're there, right? We're there. The last battle's over, what is a marriage, right? And all this about family. And it was like, and here's Bishop Robert Barron, and he was talking about what?
Marriage and family. The Christian or biblical understanding of who we are. In basic biblical anthropology, the fundamental unit is not the individual. You'll find that in some of the founders of modern political philosophy. Look at Thomas Hobbes, look at John Locke, where the individual and his rights and prerogatives and so on is the building block of society. Not true in the Bible. Not true in Catholic social teaching, in which the fundamental building block of society is not the individual, but the family. The Lord God said it's not good for the man to be alone. The Bible is not an individualistic system. It certainly respects and acknowledges the rights and freedom of the individual. Of course it does. But the building block of our social theory, if you want, is not the individual, but the family. We are built for togetherness. We're built for another. Well, it's really even more profoundly expressed here that the proper partner for the man, so this building block of society, the family, the proper partner for man has to be his co-equal. And that's the role of the woman. And then here's how this passage closes. That's why a man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife, and the two of them become one flesh. I don't know anywhere, everybody, in the literature of the world where the marriage act and marriage itself is more beautifully expressed than there.
In these moments, I got to tell you, I just find God so dazzling. 5 years ago, I get a song. In it is Genesis. Our daughter and her husband now, they choose something from Genesis. The last battleground is over all of this. Then when you go to the wedding and you listen to Father Joe Menkhaus, who just had an incredible wedding homily, and in it, let me play something else for you, because this is important.
The two become one. Now, here's what's interesting. As if that's not enough, we turn to the Gospel of Mark, and they're interrogating Jesus, trying to trip him up, asking about marriage and divorce, and can a man divorce his wife, and so on. Jesus told them, citing this very passage we've been considering, from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Now, Jesus goes on. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. And therefore, what God has joined together, no human being must separate. Now, look what's added here. What I've called before, borrowing from Aristotle, the transcendent third. Yes, man and woman come together in their complementarity. They become one flesh. They form thereby the foundation of civil society. All that's true. But what Jesus adds with great clarity is they're not just brought together out of mutual attraction. God has brought them together. Two people, husband and wife, love each other, yes, indeed, but primarily together they love God. It's God who's brought them together for his purposes. in the measure that they surrender together to God, their marriage is confirmed. But then we add this at the end. And people were bringing children to him that he might touch them, but the disciples rebuked them. When Jesus saw this, he became indignant and said to them, "Let the children come to me. Do not prevent them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these." And then it concludes, he embraced them and blessed them, placing his hands upon them. One of the clearest indicators of the covenant in the Old Testament, one of the clearest signs that the people of Israel have surrendered properly to God, is that they are fruitful and they multiply. One of the earliest commands that God gives to his people is be fruitful and multiply. Life, procreation, propagation of life, the emergence of children, all of that. Listen, as the proper fruit of this coming together of man and woman under the aegis of God, all of that, the complementarity of male and female, the fruit of all of that are the children. One of the signs, there are many of them actually, everybody, many signs of the breakdown of all of this in our society, but one of them is the absence of children. I know, a sermon for another day or a lecture for another day, but the lack of procreation in our Western societies, that we're now below replacement level. The breakdown, obviously, of marriage, breakdown of the family, a tendency to define one's own life on one's own terms. See, all of that represents the breaking apart of this biblical vision.
You can take what was just said and go back into the wedding song with Paul Stuckey when you hear,
Till the end, woman draws her life from man and gives it back again.
a woman draws her life from man and gives it back again. This exchange between husband and wife. It's why there's a Carolyn, right? Where do I get that? Well, I have to admit I was kind of inspired. At the wedding, Father Joe Menkhaus gave a beautiful homily about how, where do we get this? What are we emulating? What are we mirroring, if you will, in our families? Well, the family of God. Yes, he's one God, but three persons. There's a family there. There's a Trinity there, right? And Father Joe mentioning this particular family and this same exchange and what happens.
And so the Father is perfect love, and if he's perfect love, willing the good of another, there has to be another for him to love. And so that other is his son, Jesus. So he's constantly pouring himself out, giving himself away to Jesus. Jesus is filled with that love, that willing the good of the other, right? Think of it like a glass that you're pouring water into. He's filled with it to the point of overflowing, so that the only thing he can do is pour that love back out to his Father, willing the good of his Father, their eternal exchange of love. That love is so powerful. It's like life-giving. It's creating. It creates something new. And in the case of the Trinity, the Father, the Son, it creates a third person, the Holy Spirit. Right? The Holy Spirit proceeds from the love of the Father and the Son, such that the eternal exchange of love is a community, a communion of persons. You have to be like, Father Joe, why are you telling us all this? Watch this, okay? Daniel, the husband, takes the place of the father, filled with love, willing the good of the other for his bride being Carolyn. So he loves her so intensely, right? Just pouring himself out for her. Carolyn receives that love and is filled with it, such that the only thing she can do is pour that love back out to her spouse, Daniel, and then 9 months later, you get a baby. I know we laugh, right? I know we laugh, but it's real. Within the very human person, within male and female, as we heard in our first reading, God wrote on the human heart and in the human body the ability to mirror who he is and his love to the whole entire world. There is nothing more beautiful in all of creation.
So where are we now? It started 5 years ago, the wedding song. God taking us into Genesis, where it says he made them male and female. It talks about they become one, and they go out and multiply, and it has all of these things. And Jesus himself repeating what is in Genesis. Carolyn and Daniel choosing from Genesis for that to be read. Hearing the biblical view of marriage and family. That the last battle, the very last battle before this age comes to an end, will be over marriage and family. The irresistible force of the word, of the gospel, of the Bible, wrapped around this song, passing through what happened 62 weeks ago on this podcast when we had no idea what it was all going to add up to. This is where it all began, isn't it? In the beginning, safe to say, something rather important to God. And certainly he saw in this election here with the principal candidates a different path being taken. He sees what's on the DVR. He sees where one path would go, and he sees where another would go, and he's chosen. Best I can say as I wear the referee shirt here. Perhaps we can look at this as a tap on the brakes, as there is this slide in the world, certainly in our country, this slide away from God and the biblical view. Genesis, obviously, part of that, and family and marriage and all of that. As we watch that, a tap on the brakes to slow things down a bit. Maybe we can look at it like that. But again, God reaching into that moment, that magic moment, if you will, and perhaps answering the question we have in this title. Is this why Trump's life was saved? That's how we got here. So I think that's it, other than to finish where the wedding finished, if you will, with a whole lot of joy as this wedding, this marriage, this family, it all begins for Carolyn and Daniel, and they are now being sent out into the world. And we all couldn't be happier. So, thank you so much. And I will see you next week here at Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God.